Akari then handed the microphone to the other crew members, who then all spoke their praises for Emilia, who became increasingly embarrassed as time went on. Okay, moving on, Emilia said as she regained her composure. Let's pick the next question, shall we? Having picked the next question out of the bucket, Emilia then read it out. We have another good question here. How long do you spend at sea? I know that a lot of you will be worried about asking this, so you shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. On average, we can spend between 6 months to a year at sea. Sometimes it is longer, sometimes shorter. I'm afraid it depends on what happens in each tour. Having said this, several of the students became nervous. Noticing the nervousness in the air, Emilia then said, although there are jobs in the Navy that can be done on land where you can live at home so you're not far away from your families. Hearing her say this, the nervous ones then sighed in relief. Next question, Emilia said as Akari picked out another question and read it out loud. How likely is it to get into the Navy for males or females? To get into the Navy depends on skill rather than gender, so male or female have equal chances. Akari said. I'm sorry to interrupt. The principal said. That's okay. Please carry on. Emilia said. I happened to notice that you only have females with you and not any males. I was wondering why that was so. The principal continued with his question. Emilia started to say as all the members of the crew including herself became rather uncomfortable. Deciding to hide a lot of what happened, Emilia then said, due to an incident we have had to segregate the Navy, so the Blue Mermaids is now female only. However, there is a male division that works side by side with each of the other. Although some males can serve on female-only ships as long as they are trusted by the whole crew, Emilia said while thinking of Friedrich at the end. Oh, I see. Well, at least there is still a chance for males then, the principal asked. Yes, there is still a chance for males to join, so don't worry, you won't be discriminated against. However, for security reasons everyone will have to go through a screening process, Emilia said encouragingly. I see, that is good news then. The principal sighed in relief. The male population of the audience also sighed in relief, hearing that they still had a chance to join the Navy, although some of the more perverted of them grumbled quietly to themselves in annoyance at the fact they would be in a male-only crew. Shall we move on to the next question then, Emilia asked. Yes, I think we should, the principal said. Very well, let's pick another one, shall we, Emilia asked. Reaching into the bucket, one of the crew members pulled out another question and said, LT Miyamoto, it's for you. It says, what is the most embarrassing thing you've ever done? Hearing this, Akari paled considerably as her fellow crew members and Emilia all turned to look at her. Well, I may have taken the Admiral's underwear from the wash thinking it was mine and wore them until I found her name on the label, and I then put them back without her knowing. Akari let it spill out of her as she then blushed in embarrassment at what she had just admitted to everyone. She then paled again when she and everyone else sensed a threatening aura being directed at her. Turning around, she paled even more when she saw Emilia glaring darkly with her face covered by shadows. Before she then turned back to her normal kind and smiling expression before she said, I think we should move on now. Turning to look at Akari, she then smiled more maliciously and conveyed through her eyes the message. We will be talking about this later. Understanding the message, Akari shook nervously in fear of what Emilia would do to her. Seeing the silent conversation happen, everyone watching all prayed for Akari's safety and thought, scary. Trying to move on from what had just happened, the principal then said nervously, shall we move on to the next question? Yeah, okay, what's the next question then? Emilia asked calmly. The next question is, how did you win the Battle of Osaka Bay? That one. That was all thanks to my gunners and their excellent shooting and the cooperation between all members of the crew. That is what won the battle that day. In my belief, communication and cooperation are two of the main things that enable ship to be an effective fighting force. I have to especially commend the teamwork between the loading team and the gunners that enabled them to have such a quick reloading time, and for the helmsman for making the ship a stable firing platform that enabled them to fire so accurately. As she spoke, the mentioned members of the crew all blushed nervously at the praise, and Akari just pouted from not being mentioned. What about me, she whined. Yes, you were very helpful in conveying my orders to the rest of the crew. Emilia sighed exasperated as Haifuri beamed in pride. Shall we move on now? I believe we time for a few more questions. Emilia asked, snapping Haifuri out of her dazed expression before returning to normal. Picking another piece of paper and unfolding it, Emilia then read out. It says to everyone, what advice would you give to a crew that had just started their training? That is a good question. In fact, I'm glad it was asked. Emilia said. Who would like to start us off then? Emilia then asked. You can if you want, ma'am. Haifuri said. Okay, the first thing any new captain needs to know is to remember your training. Know the limitations of your ship. Study up on captains of the past so you don't the same mistakes they did. Trust in the abilities of your crew. Know when to trust your gut in situations when your training becomes useless. However, above all, keep your crew safe. Keep them safe and they'll go through hell with you. I would know. Emilia looking lovingly at the female crew members that stayed and came with her. The crew all looked back at her with teary smiles on their faces. We'll follow you anywhere, ma'am, the whole crew all said enthusiastically. Thank you, everyone. Emilia replied back to her crew with a smile on her face. That is the end of my part. Who would like to continue on after me? Emilia then said. I'll go next. Haifuri said as she was then handed a microphone. Okay, as the executive officer, it is my job run the ship when the captain is not there, and I am also responsible for running the ship when the admiral is unavailable. I am also the one who deals with the small problems on board ship so that Admiral Emilia can focus on keeping the ship an effective fighting force. Communication and understanding your fellow crew members is key to be a good executive officer, Haifuri said as she then finished saying her advice. The rest of the crew members then gave the audience their own advice. Once they had all finished, Emilia then said, now that all the questions have been answered, I believe it's time to move on. If we could have a 15-minute break so that everyone can stretch their legs and to give us chance to set up the next part, the principal said. Of course. Emilia agreed. I believe my crew could do with the break as well, Emilia said as she looked at her crew who were looking hopefully back at her. Alright everyone, if you can all get up and go outside. Get a drink. Relax a bit and we'll see you in 15 minutes. The principal said as all of the students then left the theater hall chatting excitedly about Emilia and the others. Once all of the students had left the room, the crew members all relaxed into their seats. Glad to be having a break. Man, that was tiring. One of the crew members said. Why am I so tired? Another one said. It's because you're not used to it, Emilia said while drinking from a glass of water. Especially talking in front of a large group of people. Yeah, okay. Thank you, ma'am, the crew member said. I wonder what is next. One of the crew said as they watched some of the teachers carry in information boards which were then placed onto easels which were numbered so that they could be easily identified. Meanwhile, with the students, after they had all left the theater hall, the students all began discussing what they had seen so far. Some of the older male students began by saying, man, Admiral Emilia is even hotter seeing her in person compared to her pictures. Yeah, I would do anything to get a night in bed with her. Another boy said, yeah bro, have you seen the size of her tits? Imagine what you could do with them if you were able to. Another said perversely. While they were saying this, the older female students looked at them in disgust and disdain. Giving one final glare at the boys, they all started their own conversation with each other. TSK, how disgusting. How can they say that in public and not be ashamed about it? One of the girls said. The other girls nodded in agreement, although they did have a slight blush on the cheeks at the thought of doing what the boys were suggesting with Emilia. Hopefully one day, we will all get to join her crew, another girl said. At least now the ships we would be on will have an all-female crew on them, so we don't have to worry about any boys perving on us, another girl said. Yeah, that's a relief, the first girl said. Although I would take just being in a fleet with the Admiral and the H-44, one girl said. Yeah, all of the girls said before sighing, imagining that exact scenario in their heads. With the younger years, as they were young, their minds were more innocent compared to the older students, so their thoughts were more along the lines of, they were so cool, I can't wait to be part of my own crew. The video was funny too. I especially like the action scenes. Another said. Meanwhile with Akino and Mocha, when they had walked out of the theater the two of them separated themselves away from the other students. Once they were far enough away from the other students Akino then asked Mocha, what do you think about what we've seen? The Admiral's so cool. I want to be just like her. Mocha said enthusiastically. Ah, mummy, you have another fangirl I see. Akino thought to herself. What do you think Akino? Mocha asked in reply. Yeah, I agree. I think she is every person's idol honestly. Akino said. Yeah, I think you're right. Mocha agreed. If you were to command a ship, what type would it be? Akino then asked. I think definitely a battleship for me. Mocha said. What about you? I think something with high mobility so maybe a cruiser or destroyer. Akino said in thought. They continued to discuss this until Akino then said, we should go back. Our break is almost over. Yeah, okay let's go. Mocha said as they then headed back towards the theater. Seeing them go the younger years soon followed and then they were joined by the older ones following behind them. Walking into the theater and sitting down in their seats they all saw the display boards they had created in class on the stage. Once everyone had sat down and became silent the principal then said, I'm glad to see that everyone made it back on time. Turning to Emilia and her crew he then said, the next bit is our own in-school competition. All of the classes have made their own display boards, and we would like you all to judge them and choose which one is best. Very well, we'll take a look at them all, Emilia said. Alright ladies. Pick a display board to look at first and then work your way around in a clockwise direction until you have looked at all of them. After hearing this they all went to a display board and began reading them. The children all sat in a nervous silence as they watched the crew read the display boards they had created, tensely listening out for any reaction that the crew members may give out. A few minutes later once they had read all the boards, Emilia then spoke to the principal and said, we'll be just outside to make our decision in private. We'll only be a few minutes. Can you entertain the audience while we make our decision? Of course, Mom. Take as much time as you need, the principal said. Thank you, Emilia said as she then turned to her crew. Alright ladies let's go. Having left the theater hall Emilia and her crew gathered in the corridor 10 meters away from the door so they wouldn't be heard. Now then girls, you've read all of them. Which ones were your favorites as I believe we are deciding on our top 3. They then started discussing which ones they all liked the most. After several minutes they managed to decide on their top 3 displays. Emilia then said, are we all decided that these 3 are the ones we like the most and in this order? Yes ma'am. These are our favorites, Haifuri said speaking for the rest of the crew. Alright let's go back then, Emilia said as they then went back to the theater hall and their awaiting audience. Meanwhile, just after the crew had left the hall, the principal then walked onto the stage and said, well everyone, I hope you have enjoyed this but we shall be ending soon. However I believe that in the following week in her spare time Admiral Emilia and her senior officers will be going to visit all of the classes in this school starting in the younger years and then making her way up to the oldest. Once the principal said this all the students erupted into cheers of joy and excitement. Yes, I know it's exciting but settle down everyone. When the Admiral and her crew come back we want to show them that we are the best school and students in the area if not Japan as she might give special consideration to applicants for the Blue Mermaids if they came from this school, the principal said as he quickly got them quiet. Replying back to the principal, the students all said enthusiastically, yes sir, good. Please sit quietly ready for when they come back so that we can present ourselves in the best light. The principal said glad that they had agreed with his instruction. Everyone then sat in silence waiting for them to come back. A few minutes later the doors at the entrance opened as Emilia walked back into the theater with her crew following closely behind her. The audience fell into a tense silence as they watched the crew members sit back into their places and Emilia walk onto the front of the stage to stand next to the principal. Turning to face her the principal asked, I take it that you have all made your decision? Yes we have and I will be announcing the results. Emilia said. Very well. You have the stage, ma'am, the principal said as he stood off to the side of the theater where the rest of the staff were watching. Thank you. Now before we begin, I would just like to remind you that we don't know which class has made which board, so I will just be saying the numbers that were on the boards and the prizes will be given to the winners by your teachers later on. Yes ma'am, we'll organize the prizes later, the principal said from the side. Okay, now without further ado, shall we begin? I will just be reading out our top 3, so in third place we have number 3, Emilia said. The students who had made board 3 all cheered quietly to themselves while the others became even more tense. Continuing on, Emilia said, okay, in second place we have number 15. Again the students who had created board 15 quietly celebrated, and again the other students that hadn't been mentioned became even more tense as everyone waited in suspense as to who would come first. Alright, in first place, Emilia started before pausing for dramatic effect. Is number 22, Emilia said slowly, making everyone even more tense. After she had finished speaking, all of the ones mentioned cheered loudly, whereas the ones that weren't mentioned sighed sadly in defeat. Speaking again, Emilia then said, although those 3 won, the others were excellent as well. The 3 were just slightly better. You should all be proud of yourselves. Once she had said this, all of the disappointed students perked up and started to feel better about themselves. Now then, I have one more thing to announce, Emilia said. Hearing her speak, the audience quickly fell silent to allow Emilia to speak. Seeing that they had become silent so quickly, Emilia smiled to herself before continuing with what she was saying. Now, as you all may know, today is the last day for entries for the flag competition, so any entries that are entered after today will be disqualified. I understand that you have all entered into the contest, whether it be an individual entry or a group effort. The winner will be announced at the end of next week. The prize for the group or individual who wins is a guided tour around our ship, the H-44, after we have got the crew back to full strength. Hearing this, everyone became excited again, even the teachers, as if their class won then they would be able to go as well. Alright, that is the last thing I wanted to say, Emilia said as she then turned towards the principal and said, Principal, can you take over? It's about time we got ready to go. We have a lot to do before the day is over. Of course, ma'am, the principal said before turning to face the audience. Now everyone, we have one last thing to say to you and your crew. Ma'am. Oh, what's that? Emilia asked, looking to the principal. Ready everyone? On 3 everyone. Okay, the principal said. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, ma'am, everyone said as they all stood up and saluted to Emilia and her crew. Seeing this, Emilia and her crew saluted back to them. Once the audience had sat back down, Emilia then said, thank you everyone, it was our pleasure to be here. I hope that you have enjoyed the time that we were here and that you have learned something from this. We, the crew of the H-44, wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors. We should be seeing you all again soon, Emilia said as she then turned to her crew and said, form up everyone, it's time to go. Once they were all formed up, Emilia then called out, forward march. As they marched out of the hall, the principal said, everyone please give our guests a massive round of applause as they leave. The hall all began clapping until Emilia and her crew had left the building. Once they had left the hall, the principal then spoke to the audience and asked, did everyone enjoy that? Yeah, the entire hall cheered loudly. As I said before, Admiral Emilia will be spending some time in each class, starting with the first years and then making her way up the years. I believe this is happening starting on Monday and ending on Wednesday. Alright, I believe it's time for lunch now. Once lunch is over, if you go back to your classes and write down your thoughts of the presentation today, the principal said as he then left the room. After he left the room, the principal quickly arrived at where the crew of the H-44 were waiting. Walking up to Emilia, the principal then said, Admiral Emilia, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. The children enjoyed it very much. It was our pleasure, and besides, we all needed a break after everything that has happened recently, and this was a new and interesting experience for a lot of the girls. Emilia said, I'm glad that this was helpful to you all as well as us. The principal said, I'll see you next week. if I'm remembering it right. Emilia said. Yes, that is correct. The principal said. Good, if all goes well I'll see you on Monday. Emilia said, getting ready to leave. Take care all of you, and it will be an honor to see you again, Admiral. The principal said. Thank you. It will be a pleasure to come back, Emilia said as they started to head out of the school grounds towards the car park. Let's go, ladies. We still have some work to do and I want all of your opinions on the applications for the replacements to our crew, Emilia said to the members of her crew as they walked to bus that had brought them to the school. Yes ma'am, the crew responded. Once they had all got onto the bus, it then set off back to the Navy base and their ship. Meanwhile, back inside the school, it was lunchtime and all of the students were talking excitedly about the presentation that was given to them by Emilia and her crew. Walking around the lunch hall to find some empty seats, Akino and Mocha couldn't help but overhear the conversations that were happening around them, all of which were about Emilia and the competition. Finding some empty seats, they both sat down and started to eat their lunch. While they were eating, Akino asked Mocha, "What did you think of Admiral Emilia?" "She's so cool," Mocha said excitedly as she ate her lunch. "Yes, she is," Akino said as she looked down with a fond smile at the bento that Emilia had made for her. As lunch went on, Akino and Mocha continued to talk about Emilia and the presentation she had given to them. They spent so much time talking. The bell ringing to signal the end of lunch came as a surprise to them. Getting up, they then made their way to their classroom for the last lesson of the day. Once all of the students had entered the classroom and had sat down at their desks, the teacher then started the lesson and said, "All right everyone, now that you are all here we can get started. For your last lesson of the day, the school staff want you all to give your opinion of the presentation that Admiral Schneider gave to us this morning, and then the class will discuss their opinions. You have 20 minutes to come up with your own opinions, and then the rest of the school day will be spent discussing with each other. You may begin now." For the following 20 minutes, all of the children silently wrote down their opinions into their workbooks. Once the 20 minutes were up, the teacher said, "All right everyone, who would like to start first?" One by one the children shared their thoughts with the rest of the class, and before long the bell to signal the end of the day sounded and the teacher said, "All right everyone, I'll see you all here again on Monday, where Admiral Emilia will be visiting us again. Get home safely everyone," the teacher called out as the children left the room to gather in the playground. In the playground, the parents were gathered together talking to each other while they waited for their children to finish school, when a young brown-haired woman entered the playground and stood off to one side to wait on her own. Curious about who she was, a few of the other parents walked up to her and said, "Hi there. Are you waiting for your child? We haven't seen you here before. Are you new here?" one of the mothers asked. Dressed in her disguise, Emilia turned towards the group and said while changing the tone of her voice, "Yes, we recently moved here. I'm waiting to pick up my daughter. She only started going here for a few days and I want her to make some friends for herself." "Ah, okay. Well, I hope you all enjoy living here," the woman replied. "Thank you. We hope so," Emilia said. Then the students of the school began filtering into the playground and made their way to the gathered parents. Seeing the children appear, all conversations began to cease as the parents waited for their children to appear. Gradually the amount of students and parents began to decrease as they left the school grounds to go home. Soon Emilia spotted Akino heading in her direction. As she drew closer, Emilia crouched down and opened her arms as an invite for an embrace. Seeing this, Akino began running towards Emilia before throwing herself into Emilia's arms. Embracing Akino, Emilia stood up, holding Akino in her arms, and turned to say goodbye to the woman she was talking to, who was talking to her own daughter, who just so happened to Mocha. Looking up at Emilia, Akino said, "Mummy, this is Mocha. It's good to meet you, Mocha. I've heard a lot about you," Emilia said. "Hello Mrs. Misaki," Mocha said nervously. "It's nice to meet you too. I'm glad that Akino has made a friend so soon after joining this school," Emilia said as she smiled down at Mocha. "Please continue being her friend. Everyone needs someone like you in their life." Mocha blushed in embarrassment and mumbled, "Yes ma'am. Well, it was nice to meet the two of you, but I believe it is time for us to go home," Emilia said. turning to Akino and saying, "Say bye to Mocha dear." "Bye bye Mocha," Akino said as she held Emilia's hand. "Bye Akino, I'll see you on Monday," Mocha said as she stood with her mother. "It was good to meet you," Emilia said to Mocha's mother. "I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again soon." "Yes, it was nice to meet you too, and I'm certain that we'll be seeing each other very often since both of our children go to school here," Mocha's mother replied to Emilia. "Come Mocha, let's go home. You can tell me about your day during the journey home." The two soon left the playground and made their way to their family car. As they walked away, Mocha turned around slightly and waved back to Akino. Seeing this, Akino gave a wave back in response. Once they were out of sight, Emilia said, "Let's go home dear," as she led Akino towards her car. Once they were at home, Akino rushed up the stairs to her room to change out of her school uniform. After changing out of her uniform, Akino went back down the stairs and saw Emilia talking to Meuki and Gorao sitting around the dinner table while the three sisters were sat in the front room watching TV. Noticing that Akino was there, Emilia said, "You can join your cousins in the front room if you want dear. Dinner will be in 30 minutes. "Okay mummy," Akino said as she then went to the front room to join her cousins watching TV. Later that evening, when everyone was sat around the dining table, Emilia then said, "Everyone, I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Auntie Mashiro asked hesitantly as everyone turned to look at Emilia awaiting her response. "Akino and I will be moving out next week. I have recently bought us a house," Emilia said as she looked at everyone. "What? Why?" the three sisters said in surprise. "I don't want to impose on you all by staying here all the time, so I have bought a house for ourselves," Emilia said. "Also Meuki and Gorao, when I am at sea, can Akino stay here with you? I don't want to leave her at home alone." "That's fine with us. You both are more than welcome to stay here," Meuki said kindly. "Thank you. It means a lot," Emilia said, smiling in gratitude. "Where will we be living mummy?" Akino asked. "It's the house down at the end of this street. So don't worry dear, we won't be far away from each other," Emilia said, making the children give sighs of relief. "If you want, we can go look round it tomorrow, as I already have the keys. We just need to move our belongings in," Emilia said. "Really? Can we all?" the children said in excitement as they looked to their respective parents, excited to know where their aunt and cousin would be living. "As long as it is alright with you sis," Meuki said. "Of course it is. All of you are more than welcome to come. You can consider it your home as well, since you all have welcomed the two of us into your home. It's the least I could do," Emilia said. "Very well, let's all go tomorrow," Meuki said. "Yay," all of the children said in excitement. "Once you've all finished your dinner, you can have a few hours of entertainment before it's off to bed for you all," Meuki said. "Okay mummy auntie," the children said as they quickly finished off the rest of their dinner before rushing back to the front room. Once all of the children had left, Meuki quietly asked, "Are you sure this is what you want? You know that you are always welcome here, right?" "I know, and I'm sure I can't risk Akino's or all of your lives if my enemies got word of our connection together and our relationship with Akino," Emilia said. "I just can't take the chance." "Okay, if that's what you wish, then we are with you all the way," Meuki said, seeing how determined Emilia was in what she was doing to keep them safe. "Thank you sis, that means a lot to me," Emilia said thankfully. "It's okay. Shall we join the kids in the front room?" Meuki asked. "Sure, let's go then," Emilia said as the two women got up to leave. "Are you coming dear?" Meuki asked to her husband, who was still sat at the dining table. "Go on without me. I've got a few things from work to look over before I join you all," Gorao said as he then stood up to make his way towards his office. Going up the stairs and getting to his office, Gorao then thought to himself, "Damn it, what am I supposed to do now? If Emilia is moving out, I'll never be able to see her bare body, let alone sleep with her." Sitting in his chair, Gorao sat in silence, thinking on what he could do. "I know I could pretend to fall asleep in the bath before she goes to get ready, and with luck she wouldn't notice me as she stripped off her clothes, or even if she did notice me, I could gauge her reaction to my body and maybe I could get her to fall for me. Yes, I'll do that, but not now, otherwise it could be suspicious. I need to go back down soon as well." Standing up, Gorao then left his office and made his way downstairs to join the others. Entering the front room, Gorao sees that everyone is sat watching the TV. Noticing his arrival, Mayuki asks him, "Did you finish up your work, honey?" "Yes. It wasn't much, but I wanted to finish it before I forgot about it," Gorao said as he made his way into the front room and sat down on the sofa next to his wife. "That's sensible," Emilia said from the other side of Mayuki. Nodding her head in agreement, Mayuki leaned her head on her husband's shoulder as they settled in front of the TV for the night. Thinking quietly to himself and making sure that it looked like he was still watching the TV with everyone else, Gorao let his mind wander a bit as he thought, "Oh, who knows, I might have a chance after all. She wouldn't say that if there wasn't some interest towards me." As the night wore on, the adults started to notice that the children were beginning to fall asleep where they were seated. Turning to Mayuki, Emilia said, "I think it's time we got these ones to bed. Yeah, they'll never get up in time for tomorrow." Gently shaking her children awake, Mayuki said, "Come on dears, it's time for bed." Begrudgingly they all stood up and began sluggishly making their way upstairs for bed, with Mayuki following up behind them. Gently waking Akino up, Emilia stood up and walked out of the room and made her way upstairs with a still waking Akino in her arms. Watching them as they left, Gorao couldn't take his attention away from Emilia's backside no matter how much he tried. Once they were all in bed, Emilia said to Akino, "Go to sleep darling, I shall join you soon." Giving Akino a goodnight kiss on the forehead, Emilia watched as Akino slowly went to sleep. Seeing that she was asleep, Emilia quietly made her way out of the room where she met Mayuki in the hallway, who had done the same as her to her own daughters. "Let's go back down, shall we?" Emilia suggested. "Yes, let's go," Mayuki said as the two women made their way down the stairs. Walking back into the room, Emilia said, "Hey, what did we miss?" "Not much. Nothing interesting has really happened," Gorao said as he looked up from the TV at the two, or more precisely at Emilia, or even more precisely at her breasts. He quickly looked back to the TV so that the two wouldn't suspect him of doing anything. A few hours later, Emilia released a yawn as she then said, "I'm going to bed now. I'll see you both tomorrow. Good night." Standing up, she again started to make her way out of the room and up the stairs. Before she had left the room, the Munetani parents both said, "Good night sis Emilia. Don't stay up too long." Emilia said, "Don't worry, we'll come up once you've finished getting ready for bed." Mayuki said, "Okay, see you in the morning," Emilia said as she left the room. Once the two were sure that Emilia had finished getting ready, they made their way upstairs, switching off any lights or unnecessary electrical appliances as they went. After they had both got ready for bed, they both quickly fell asleep, excited to see Emilia's new house on the following day. When Emilia had finished washing herself and having put on her nightdress, she drew back the bed covers and climbed into bed. Almost as though she had sensed her mother's presence, Akino cuddled up to Emilia's side, placing her head under Emilia's arm. Smiling to herself, Emilia said, "Love you honey," before she also fell asleep.